Yes, guys, how you doing? Welcome back to the Spurs Talk Show. I am Sean Butler. Bugsy Malone is just over here. She's got the ball when she's hurt her paw. So we're going to have to manage some expectations around run time and throw time. Managing expectations, a difficult subject to broach with Tottenham fans. We're going to try to go through some transfer news, views and clues for you today. Shout out to those of you that joined me on the late night stream last night following the Tottenham game. Went on for 3 hours. Had some new guests, some old faces, some regular returnees. It was nice little chinwag. Boy, do I like those magnums. Dangerous, sehr dangerous. Guys, what are we talking about here? Today we're talking about goalkeeper chases. We've got some names for you. Anthony Patterson and Fofana. You know what? I've forgotten to write down his first name because there's a lot of Fofanas in the world, especially those that stem out of the Ivory Coast part of it. And this guy is one such name, and I didn't write down his first name, and now I feel bad. He plays for ANGE. We'll talk about him, 6'4" monster, 20-year-old potential goalkeeping option to discuss. We've also got a centre-back pursuit. Some good names on today's list of players that you may or may not have ever heard of. ABDUKHADIR, Khusanov from Uzbekistan, who only arrived in Angers in France, Ligue 2, 18 months ago from a Belarusian team called Energetic BGU Minsk. Believe it or not, the Y Scout tool doesn't stretch to that part of the world for too much in the way of sample size of data, so I'm flying a little bit blind here. But in the valley of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. I'd rather have a little bit of data than none at all. Guys, before we get into it, we also, sorry, I forgot to mention, Patrick Dorgu, of Dorgu fame, chased by Chelsea, Napoli and Juve, described as absolutely absurd as a 20-year-old winger, purported to be worth 50 million quid. We're going to get into all 4 of those players. Before we do, guys, hit the like button for me on the video if you don't mind. If you enjoy this content, hit the subscribe button for me on the channel if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell and drop a comment. Let me know your thoughts on today's topics. Thank you everyone for the like game. It's always super strong on these uploads, and the subscribers coming back in. You're dripping, feeding back in, and I love it. I appreciate that about you. I hope the wind pop isn't too bad today because I couldn't find the filter and it's windy. So I'm going to try and get down there beyond the little break here and see if it makes it a bit more of an experience for you, because there's only one thing that ruins this particular type of content, and it's not Bugsy, and it ain't going to be wind, it's going to be me. Let's get straight into it, guys. Let's start with the pursuit of a goalkeeper. And of course, we've spoken about James Trafford on the last transfer news and clues. I think that was on Friday, was it, or Saturday maybe? Well, Anthony Patterson, Sunderland youth player, come through their academy, 24 years old, has been pursued in the recent transfer window by Liverpool and Manchester United. A very interesting goalkeeper, 6'3", valued at 12 million euros according to Transfer Market. Has conceded 11 goals in 14 games, but has kept 7 clean sheets in Sunderland's pursuit of Championship promotion or survival. I don't know how the season's going to pan out for them, but they're doing well. And look, he's a really interesting goalkeeper. He's obviously he's born in Newcastle. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty certain that would make him homegrown, especially coming through the ranks of the Sunderland team. And look, very interesting goalkeeper. So big man, 6'3", 6'4", and you know what? New Sean, same Bugsy, still barking, still unaccepting of a different reality than the one that she had in her mind. Anyway, we're gonna just park ourselves here out of the wind for a minute, and then we'll go back and see her afterwards. Guys, where was I going with this? So CAA base, right? Maybe that's the long and the short of the connection, part of their agency. So wouldn't be beyond the surprise to see the link. But listen, a very talented goalkeeper, very good in the way of shot stopping, 89th percentile for crosses intercepted and successful crosses stopped. Look, very handy goalkeeper. No reason to think that it wouldn't be a nice plug-in. Look, we've spoken about this before. Bugsy, pack it in, mate. We have spoken about this before. The difficult conundrum of trying to find a second choice goalkeeper that is good enough, that's proven themselves to be handy enough that you can rely on them to come in, and also be willing to play second fiddle, because as much as you want this kind of squad rotation, no such thing as a first team and a second team in the outfield spots, I think it is necessary to have a settled number one with regard to your goalkeeper. And obviously the other guy can play their part in cup competitions and obviously European competitions, depending on the calibre of the competition that you're in and how far down the process you are. And look, Fraser Forster has kind of thrown a spanner in the works in terms of his outperformance has been meaningful and measurable. And I want to spend a second here and take a little bit of credit to that man, a lot of credit to him, because he's going to be aware of the fallout from the Vicario injury. And look, let's not sort of kid ourselves. Vicario is a hot and cold keeper in terms of Tottenham fan base perspective anyway, right? Like, he is a wonderful shot stopper, but we are all familiar with last season's corner and set piece issues. And as much as Ange gets irritated by interview questions where they ask about set pieces and he rolls his eyes and scoffs and kind of smirks and says, you know, we've only conceded 3 or 4 goals from set pieces this year, so it's not really a big deal, but whatever, you've got to do your thing, you've got to write your papers. And to a degree, like, if you're, again, just looking at stats, and I think I made the same point about Brennan Johnson yesterday, if you're just a stat guy looking at output, then Brennan Johnson, you can't really complain. 9 goals this season, right? Sensational from however many games he's played. But when you really sort of peel that onion bit layer back and look a bit deeper, is he really contributing enough in the way of team effort? For a team that has to invoke the press to be successful, when Tottenham don't play well, to me it's usually because the press isn't that effective. Obviously, that goes par and parcel for the course. If you are playing the press and you do it as a team and you do it successfully, then it's a wonderful thing to see, and you can always retain possession. Yesterday we were absolutely atrocious. The work rate wasn't there. Do you put it down to tiredness? Do you put it down to is that an excuse or an explanation? I think it's a combination of both. I think you can't necessarily just dismiss the reality of the situation when it comes to our squad and how injury plagued we are. And even if you had better players, you know, when you have that many players out, it's going to affect your ability to have options off the bench. So that notwithstanding, I think that you have to acknowledge that, and Ange will lean into that credit, or that kind of bank of opportunity to kind of dismiss what was a terrible performance, in my opinion. But he has got some merit on that regard. There's no two ways about it. And other managers do lean into his excuses around injuries more than he has done in the past. But, you know, come of the hour, come of the man. When there's an opportunity to, that's what he's lent into. And I think that there's reason there. But I also would argue that the team that was out was better than Fulham on paper. We still had a very strong first 11 out yesterday. And I just don't think that the team worked hard enough. Now, the Thursday-Sunday thing, I'm sorry, I'm not really accepting that as an excuse, because every other top team finds a way to get past it. Anyway, long story short, I'm getting well off the topic. This is what we do on these monologue rants, isn't it? Let's get back to the goalkeeper situation. But Brennan Johnson for me is a good example of output being important, but not necessarily the whole story. And I think that when it comes to Ange's scoffing at the idea that this set piece thing is fixed because we've only conceded 3 goals, if I'm entirely honest, I don't know what's changed, apart from the opposition don't seem to put as much pressure on Vicario as they did last season. And whenever they have, they've had similar types of success, and we've seen similar types of vulnerabilities. So you can look at the output and say, well, we're not conceding anywhere near as many chances and goals as we did last season via set pieces. But when you peel back the surface and go, why is that? Then you kind of go, well, I don't really think it's because, to my eye, and again, I'm not a coach, I'm not a scout, I'm not a manager, and I'm certainly not going to sit here and proclaim to know what I don't know. Right? I steer clear of that as much as I possibly can. However, to my eye, I'd love your thoughts on this. I don't really see what has changed in regards to preparation for set pieces. I still think it's as vulnerable as ever. It's just whether or not the opposition decide to lean into that as a strategic end. And if they're not, why not? That's another kind of unknown to me. So let me know your thoughts. But in any event, my point about that whole rant, that 4-minute sidetrack there, was, well, Vicario isn't exactly, you know, pulling up trees in every department of his game. And so the reaction to when he went down and oh no, we've got Fraser Forster, but maybe it was a little bit overblown. And Fraser Forster's obviously a proud man, a strong character, and always harks on about how much of a leader he is in the dressing room and a brilliant trainer he is. And that guy, obviously, probably very much so, was going to be aware of the kind of fallout from the Vicario injury, and probably had a point to prove. And my God, has he proven it? Wonderful performance. Man of the match in the Tottenham shirt yesterday for me. Very, very good against Roma. Good against Galatasaray. and I don't think he's been responsible for any of the drop points that we've had in his most recent performances. Obviously, his one performance before that was Coventry, and that wasn't a great reintroduction, but that was his first performance, I think, in a Tottenham shirt since his long layoff through injury. So, long story short, get back to this player, Patterson. Oh, put the thing down. Look, sounds great, right? Looks like a really good. He does look like a really good player, but we have to make the mind up around what do we do with regards that kind of number 2 choice. When Vicario is back, you do have to find a long-term solution for Fraser Forster, because he is 37, and like I say, right now it's not necessarily a problem, but it is a problem if he gets injured. You've got Brandon Austin and you've got Alfie Whiteman. Between them only have one first team appearance in their Tottenham careers, and like I said to you last time I spoke about them, I find it very uncomfortable to think about people that are happy to rest on their laurels and pick up a nice salary relative to the rest of the world. But ultimately, if you're gifted with enough talent to be able to get onto Tottenham Hotspur's roster, but not enough ambition to test yourself at any level of professional football, I find that to be problematic, and I don't think I would trust that sort of mindset between the sticks in a high-pressure environment of a game should something happen to Fraser Forster. And you know that anything can happen. Now, it's unusual for a team to lose both of their first choice and second choice goalkeeper, but you know, it can happen. So, is Patterson a good fit? Maybe, probably. Yeah, he looks good. I looked him up on the Wyscout tool. You know, you see this highlight reel, and of course you're going to see all of his wonderful saves, and he can make really good saves. He's got good distribution, at least in the highlight reel that I saw. But like I say, you know what? When you're watching the everything reel on the Wyscout tool of a player, of a defender, there's enough kind of things to look into there to keep your mind, you know, occupied and interested in that analysis. But with a goalkeeper, it's boring as hell watching the everything reel of a goalkeeper. My word, is it boring. So I didn't do too much detail into him, but look, very well respected. A lot of big clubs were looking into him. 6'3", 24 years old, getting into the meat of his kind of the kind of early stages of the growth of his career. Not under any pressure to leave, hasn't wanted to leave, hasn't requested to leave. Will he want to leave at his boyhood club? I think even though he born in Newcastle, he came through the Sunderland ranks. I don't know if he supports Sunderland or Newcastle. It's interesting, isn't it? Newcastle and Sunderland right next door to each other, and the rivalry is stiff and severe. So if he's a Newcastle lad, however, why pet, then why would you choose Sunderland? Is it just geographically proximate, and that's the sort of the compelling part of the narrative? I'm not sure. Anyway, whatever, it doesn't matter. Let's move on. That's Anthony Patterson. 12 million euros, but in order to prize him away, should Sunderland be okay with selling it, would take a healthy sum in January. Are we going to do it? Are we prepared to do it? I think that it's something we have to fix and figure out, because the idea of Brandon Austin is worrisome, and we don't know how long it's going to be for, you know, an ankle surgery to recover. Will there be setbacks? Tottenham medical team, maybe there is. Are we going to rush Vicario back and then potentially go and, you know, ruin that whole process? I don't know. Anyway, we'll move on. Next goalkeeper is Ivory Coast Fofana, as I mentioned. I don't know his first name, I forgot to write it down. Donut Butler, you donut. Plays for ANGE. ANGE. So the first one was a CAA base. That was the reason for the connection, or maybe the reason for the connection. Is the reason for the Fofana connection just because he plays for a team that sounds like ANGE? Dry news day, maybe. This man plays for, like I say, the League 2 team, or it was the League 2 team, and last year had 14 clean sheets. He got them promoted, or part of the team that got them promoted. They came up. They're likely to go right back down to League 2, and he's only had 1 clean sheet in 12. So obviously it's difficult to know, you know, whether clean sheets. It's more likely just the fact of how good a quality the team is, rather than necessarily the goalkeeper. Because if you're the worst team in the league, you're going to, you know, a goalkeeper's not a brick wall. He can't keep out every shot just because he's a good goalkeeper. Sometimes there's just realities to the frequency of chances conceded. Anyway, 6'4", very well respected. Was part of the Ivory Coast team that I think won the African Cup of Nations last year, and is, I don't have a valuation here, but again, I took a look at him. Very flamboyant, you know, kind of African. When you think of that stereotypical kind of like some of the crazy things that you see in the African Cup of Nations, you know, Fofana for me looked a little bit in that regard, like, you know, happy to kind of experiment with some of the effervescence that can be attributed to goalkeeping craziness. And when it works, it looks amazing. Sometimes it can look a little bit foolish. I'm not sure if that's a steady Eddie, and I don't really think it's something that I will be on board. But listen, I'm happy to say I don't know anything about this guy. I've never heard of him, and I don't watch ANGE football, so Correct me if I'm wrong, let me know if you do, and let me know what you think of him. If you're someone that happens to watch Ivory Coast, let me know about if I'm wrong about his flamboyance. But either way, let's move on. I think that the goalkeeping story is going to continue to go. I think we are probably going to have to look again, despite ANGE saying we'll see where the squad is in January. Look, Vicario's not going to be back by January, so as long as Fraser Forster is still fit in January, then you'd hope that him and Johan Lange will have already kind of come to some sort of determination. I'm 15 minutes in and I've barely got into it. Because there's 3 more stories to go, guys. First of all, Patrick Dorgu, the Lecce winger. Followed by Chelsea, Napoli and Juve, came through the Nord-Zealand Academy and didn't play for them, got moved out to Lecce when he was 17 years old. He's now 20, he's valued at 50 million quid, 3 goals in 12 appearances this season, 2.2 shots per 90, 0.7 takeover successes per 90, and 1.25 key passes per 90, a key pass being a shot, pass that leads to a shot. Looks very, very interesting, but £50 million for a 20-year-old, you have to be sure. And if I'm entirely honest, I'm not sure. But when you hear these like absolutely absurd is the quotes, this is how good he is. It's a journalist's dream to take that kind of soundbite and turn it into a story. I just don't know whether or not Tottenham are going to spend that sort of money again on a youngster that we already got. How many of them have got coming in? We've got the Heung Min and Spit on That Yang coming in, and we've got Udogie coming back from injury at some point, all of whom are supposed to be the next big thing in their own regard. So do we really need another kind of highly expensive, risky kind of asset, or do we at some point need to kind of go, we do need the legacy completion, the kind of the next stage of Sonny. He needs to be minutes measured, minutes managed, but ultimately we have to be aware that, you know, Father Time has its toll on us all, and we need to go again. But for £50 million, look, I've always said that £50 million isn't what it used to be. No sir, not at all. However, there's a never-ending stream of talent in that kind of left-wing role, and the difference between a £20 million and a £50 million player is the ability to make good decisions when you look up. I'll be honest, of the Y-Scout report that I looked at from this guy, he looks a really interesting player, but I don't think he looks like a £50 million player just yet. Let me know your thoughts though, guys. I'm sure the story is just an interesting one. And one, look, you know, like I say, I'm happy to be wrong. I don't watch Lecce. I don't watch a huge amount of Italian football. For what it's worth, apparently his representatives want him to stay in Italy. He doesn't mind either way, but sorry if this is the windy's probably ruining this video. If not, I am. Anyway, the story is though that £50 million might be too much for Italian team's blood, and so if the representatives really want to cash in on this guy, if Lecce want to cash in on this guy, then Europe, leaving Italy and coming to the Premier League will be the most likely outcome, and there are a long list of suitors that would be interested in him. I just think that there's lower hanging fruit, easier options for similar money, or with bigger names, more security in the confidence of the transition and the distribution and the ability to go again. We'll move on, guys, in the interest of brevity here. Who else we've got to talk about? We have to talk about, of course, this amazing name, ABDUKHADIR Khusanov. Khusanov? Khusanov. I just think that one, if he comes to the Premier League, the amount of Sun back page headlines would be sensational. So he came, he's playing for Lens. Newcastle were interested in him as well, and Tottenham apparently are fighting it out for this guy. £25 million centre back, 20 years old, I believe. He's only been in France for 18 months. Before that, as I said to you earlier, he came out of Energetic BGU Minsk in Belarus, and he only cost 100 grand. So if Lens do cash in on him, then they will make a healthy profit. £25 million is the asking price. Look, I looked him up. There's not a huge sample size available because I don't think the at least my version, my currently sort of downplayed version of Y-Scout has access to too much in the way of data for him. But what I could see of him in his time at Lens, he looks very, solid. Like he looks good in the air, solid in the air. He's tall, he's strong, he's powerful. I don't think he speaks English just yet, obviously, and but I don't really have too much of the way to say, and I'd sit there and kind of go, again, is this just lazy journalism? Are Tottenham forever looking for young players? We've got, is this going to be the replacement to Romero? No, I wouldn't have thought so. £25 million, like I say, looks solid. offers a lot in the way of comfort, but I couldn't really get my finger on whether he's got lightning pace or fast enough to play the high line. And I went through the everything rule, that what I could see, and there was as many good passes as there were bad passes, lots of short sideways passes. Didn't really look like he could thread the eye of a needle. And so if he's the guy that's going to replace a Christian Romero, or if Radu Dragusin is thought of being the replacement for Romero, and this guy's going to come in and play the Radu Dragusin role of second fiddle in the cup competitions until we see whether he's ready or not, then at some point we have to shake hands with the idea of, are we building this youth team for no purpose at all? You know, there's 2 or 3 players that are chomping at the bit that have been signed recently that will be looking at that and going, he's the same age of me, you clearly don't have any faith in me, and therefore I should be looking elsewhere. I would like to see what some of these youth players are like. Like I said yesterday, I thought that the Will Lancashire decision to leave him on the bench till the 93rd minute was silly. I think that there was a massive gap in our ability to throw sort of men forward in the last minutes of that game and to have some sort of body weight and strength in the air. And I think that Decky coming on to play striker, but then ended up sort of coming back to get the ball and then taking on the world. I thought that left Bergvall as the only kind of forward-thinking midfielder, and it was, you know, not necessarily going to work out. Yesterday was just a game full of frustrations. A lot of those I ended up evoking in the nicest possible way, I think. Maybe not, maybe I offended some people last night on my late night stream. But you know what? New Sean, same Bugsy, we don't care anymore. Well, we still care, but we don't really care that much or anywhere near as much about saying it how we see it. And that's what we're going to try and do. To me, these 4-5 names, all of them a little bit underwhelming. All of them, I think, or especially the goalkeeping stories, I think are likely to continue to heat up. And it's a difficult one, it's a difficult square to circle. What do you do? Do you go young? Do you go old? If you go young, you need someone who's got to be comfortable and confident enough to be able to take their chance when they're given it, but also recognise that they're playing second fiddle. And the only way you're going to be happy about having that player is if you've seen a sample size of their successes at whatever level they've been at. And if they have done it enough to be impressive at that level, then they also have to be willing to give up that progress. And with the likes of James Trafford as a perfect example, he didn't want to do it. He didn't want to go to Newcastle last year, or this season, and sit on the bench behind Pope. And so instead he stayed where he was and has done really good things. Will the same be said for Patterson? Fofana? Not so sure. I think that's more just like an ANGE thing, an ANGE naming convention thing. But we shall see. Last one, guys, for you is Dominic Calvert-Lewin. It's all over the press this morning. Dominic Calvert-Lewin is out of contract at the end of the summer, and apparently in all of the big broadsheets, the Telegraph, the Times, the Sun, every single one of them, and all over the main kind of press, which gives you a little bit of a kind of scary feeling that it might be some legs to it. He's out of contract, free transfer, and he is of interest to Tottenham, and that he would jump at the chance to come and play in the ANGE system. And I'm sitting there going, oh no, please don't do this to me. No, I know we've got injuries to Richalison, but you are replacing it's a carbon copy problematic signing. I'm sorry, no disrespect to Everton, no disrespect to Dominic Calvert-Lewin. On his day, Calvert-Lewin is a powerful player, very strong in the air, good carrier of the ball. All of the things that you can say about many B-Tech level players in the Premier League, and Tottenham can't possibly go again and just get a player of that calibre. We need to go and set up and go, wowzers, we've got enough youth, we've got more 18-year-old talent than the hub. We need some quality, high calibre players, and you're not going to find that in Dominic Calvert-Lewin. I think in nearly 300 appearances he has scored or assisted about 90 GA contributions, so not even 1 in 3 games does he get a G or an A as a striker. It's just not good enough. And whilst I don't mind the player on his day, he's very good, but how often is his day, and it's not very often. I know he's doing it in a struggling Everton team. Bugsy, enough mate, I'm almost done. For the love of God, give it a break, bro. What? Anyway, let me know your thoughts. Dominic Calvert-Lewin, for me, it's no, sir, we don't want that. We need someone better. You know who I like? Gyökeres, break the bank, bring him in. Sell Richarlison, bring in the Gyökeres, get the Swedish thing going on. Love Scandinavian footballers, love Scandinavians. Australians and Scandinavians, my favourite people, but you lot are my favourite audience. Like, subscribe and comment, guys. Same Sean, same Bugsy. We're going to try and change both. See you on the next one.